All right. Here's a question for you, because I probably have the right guy to give me a different perspective on this question that I asked on another show the other day to some very capable writers, but didn't necessarily get the answer I wanted to, because I just think it's elusive. But considering your recruiting angle and expertise, I started watching college football in the late 70s. Throughout the 80s and 90s, sure, you had the Miami dynasty. You had Florida State finishing in the top 5, 14 years in a row. And you could go to the top of each conference. And, of course, it was Ohio State, Michigan. It was Washington, USC, UCLA. And, there was still a power structure. Mm-hmm. But you could choose 20 to 25 teams in the nation. And over the course of a 5 or 6 year span, if you picked up your Athlons, your Lindy's magazine year to year, you were going to see maybe Ohio State's number 3 preseason one year, maybe they're number 20 the next year. Michigan, everybody, there was a distribution of wealth that was more widespread. You had Georgia Tech competing for national championships in Colorado, and it was all over the place. Again, you could select 20 or 25 teams, and over the course of 5 or 6 years, they were competing for national championships. Right now, we're in a situation for the last 5 or 6 years. Ohio State owns the Big Ten. Oklahoma owns the Big 12. Clemson owns the ACC. The SEC's got so much talent that it's been distributed a little bit, but it's basically Alabama's had it locked down since Saban walked on campus. Georgia's good. LSU's good. That's it. I love this sport, but I want to see other teams jump into the mix and have a shot. And sure, we can talk. Miami's could be a breakout. North Carolina could be a breakout. Oregon could be a breakout. They won the Rose Bowl last year. But basically, we're talking about 4 or 5 schools dominating the sport and really 3, but about 4 or 5 in the last 5 or 6 years. Why?
It's a good question. I think that you have elite coaching in multiple places. And I think that those coaches are just doing such an incredible job of talent acquisition. Alabama, they get pretty much who they want. Clemson, they select differently, but they get everybody that they want, and nobody ever decommits or leaves. I'm sorry. Well, Corey Foreman, the number 1 player in this class at present, he decommitted because he's from California, and he thinks he's probably going to, go somewhere else or stay a little closer to home. But that's 2 decommitments in the last 9 years. The third one recommitted and signed at Clemson, so he doesn't count. So, really. So, yeah, there's 2 decommitments in the last basically almost decade. It's just really, there's just so much that's better. Your sports medicine is better. Your player development is better. So those places that are doing really well are at the top. They're getting the guys that you want. They're developing the guys that you want. They're not leaving. They're not missing on guys that are foundational. Again, and I spoke about this maybe about a month ago, but Clemson is just hit on every single quarterback that they've brought in. And even the ones who leave, Hunter Johnson was a 5-star. Chase Bryce was a 4-star. You just got recruited over by, Hunter Johnson was the number 1 quarterback in his class. You get recruited over the next year with Trevor Lawrence. You know what I mean? So it's like I have a 5-star and I recruit over him with a generational player, a talent. It's just they're minimizing the risk and maximizing the profits, basically. So it's crazy to have so many schools in golden ages at the same time. But there's going to come a time when it, Chinua Achebe, things fall apart. Alabama, like LSU jumped up last year. And Alabama didn't quote unquote fall apart, but it wasn't Alabama like that. LSU took that mantle. The school in the state south of Michigan, they're going to miss on guys. They're not going to be that forever. Clemson, eventually somebody who's foundational, a quarterback is going to miss, or he's not going to, one of their quarterbacks that they think is going to be great is going to end up being Kyle Wright, as the chosen one to steward the dynasty forward, but he ends up being just a guy. And then, it's not as incredible as it once was. But right now, yeah, you have like I mean, and then Lincoln Riley is just an offensive genius at Oklahoma. So, yeah, I mean, you have 3, 4, 5 schools in golden ages all together at the same time. It's kind of crazy, but we'll see what happens.
It is kind of crazy. I reviewed about 4 national championship races here in the last few weeks, going back to 83, 84, 90, and some other years. And it's not that I really discovered anything I didn't already know, but just kind of rediscovered. And I ran into Illinois all of those years. It's not being like serious national championship contenders at the end, but like coming down the stretch 10-1, going to the Rose Bowl. And I was like, wow, yes, I remember it. I watched it, but Illinois running into, 4 and 5 and 6 schools in every conference at some point in the 80s and 90s who were competing seriously for national championships. And that's just not happening now. And I hear what you're saying. Things change, and it seems unfathomable that Alabama is not going to be an elite team. But they were 3-8 15 years ago. So things do change. Right. People that are younger, it seems like I remember in the early 80s when I'd been watching football for 5 years, the things that had gone out for those 5 years, I just thought would always happen because that's all I had seen. So things will change to a certain extent, but it's been going on for.
I mean. But I'll say this before I answer the statement that's on the screen. It isn't even that Alabama has to go back to 3-9. But if Alabama is 9-3 every year, 8-4, as opposed to just the juggernaut of life, that's changing. That's different than what we have now. You know what I mean? Like a consistent or in that 8-4, 9-3 range, that's a very different program than the Alabama that you have right now.